Chapter 4, Boarding Call. I am Bryce of the Cinder Archive, and this is Chapter 4, Boarding Call. They saw it from a distance last night. A thruster housing that didn't read is built, not quite, a wrongness none of them could name from a spyglass and the dark. Now the gap between the two ships has closed to something a person could cross, given rope and nerve, and a plan that doesn't fall apart the moment somebody has to improvise. Tonight isn't for fighting. Tonight is for getting close enough to see what they're actually dealing with, and getting out again before anyone notices they looked. The charter ship rides dark and silent, a careful distance off the captain's vessel, running lights doused, and the five of them crouch low in the rigging working out, in low, overlapping voices, exactly how badly this could go wrong before they've even started. Stealth, Wick says, first and fastest, because stealth is always his first answer to everything. In, look, out. Nobody even knows we were there. Stealth's good for looking, Senna says. It's not good if they catch us looking. We should be ready to go in clean and direct if it comes to that. Better to control how the fight starts than to be caught flat in the middle of one. Nobody said fight. I'm saying if. There won't be an if you're not loud about it, Bram says, mild, not quite agreeing with either of them. Orsa, crouched at the rigging's edge with her eyes half closed, isn't listening to the argument so much as already past it. I can send something ahead, a scout. Won't draw attention the way a person would. A small gray shape unfolds from the shadow at her shoulder. An owl, barely larger than a clenched fist, wings silent even in the open night air, and lifts away toward the captain's ship without further ceremony. She'll find the patrol routes before we cross. That's useful, Tamsin says, already turning her attention to the gap between ships, to the faint shimmer along the captain's hull that marks a boarding ward keyed to repel exactly the kind of crossing they're about to attempt. I can take the ward down from here if I have a clean line. Won't need to touch it, just need a minute of quiet. And the breach itself? Bram asks. Controlled, he answers himself before anyone else can. One point of entry. Everyone through the same gap in the same order, so nobody's caught explaining themselves to a patrol mid-crossing. It isn't a vote, nobody calls it a vote. But somewhere in the next several breaths, without anyone formally proposing it, the 5 separate instincts collapse into a single plan. Orsa's owl scouts the patrol lanes, Tamsin drops the ward from range while the others wait, silent in the rigging. Wick leads the actual crossing once the ward's down, because nobody crosses a gap like this more quietly than he does. Bram holds the breach point and calls the order. Senna stays coiled and ready to go loud. The instant quiet stops being an option. Good, Bram says, when the owl returns and dips her wings once. Orsa's signal, apparently, for clear, for now, ... itch. Tamsin, whenever you're ready. Tamsin doesn't need long. The shimmer along the distant hull flickers once, twice, and then simply isn't there anymore. Gone so cleanly that if you hadn't been watching for it, you'd never have known it existed. Go, she says, quiet, and they go. The crossing itself takes less time than the planning did, and feels considerably longer. There's a working line strung between the two ships inside of a minute. Wick's doing, fast and economical, the kind of knot work that looks effortless because it's been practiced past the point of needing thought. And then there's nothing under any of them but cold air and a long drop in the cloud. They can't see the bottom of, one at a time, hand over hand, the wind doing its level best to make the crossing personal. Wick goes first, predictably, and is over the rail and flattened against the deck shadow before the second person's even halfway across. Tamsin follows, light enough that the line barely registers her weight. Orsa next, gripping harder than strictly necessary and saying nothing about it. Senna crosses fast and sure, the particular speed of someone who's trained for exactly this kind of risk and refuses to let it show his fear. Bram comes last, deliberately, watching the deck the whole way over rather than the drop beneath him. They've barely regrouped in the shadow of a stacked crate when a patrol passes close enough to hear breathing. 2 crew members, unhurried, mid-conversation about something that doesn't matter to anyone but them, close enough that Senna's hand finds her weapon's hilt on pure instinct before her mind catches up and tells her not yet. Nobody moves. Nobody breathes louder than the wind allows. The patrol passes 3 feet from where Tamsin is pressed flat against cold brass, close enough that she could count the rivets on the nearer one's coat, and then they're gone, voices fading toward the bow, and the 5 of them are alone on a deck that doesn't know they're there yet. Lower decks, Bram says, low, already moving before anyone's confirmed it's his call to make. Engine housings below. That's where we'll find what we're looking for. Nobody argues. It isn't that anyone's decided to follow him, exactly. It's that His read is the obvious one, and saying so out loud would waste time nobody has to waste. He goes first down the narrow companionway stairs, and the others fall in behind him, in an order nobody assigned, and everyone, somehow, already understands. The lower decks are tighter than the open air above, lit by the occasional dim lantern and smelling of oil and old brine, and it's here that the night's first real complications start arriving, one after another, small enough to handle but constant enough to keep 5 hearts beating faster than the situation strictly requires. The first is a hatch, locked, exactly where the route forward needs to go. Wick has it open inside of 30 seconds, fingers working a set of picks with the same unhurried confidence he brought to the line crossing, and doesn't even bother looking smug about it. Just nods them through and follows. The second is a loose plank, 3 steps past the hatch, the kind of thing that would announce their presence to the whole ship with one careless footstep. Orsa catches it before anyone else notices. A hand on Senna's shoulder, a single shake of the head, a gesture toward the floor that says more than words would in the time they have. Senna adjusts her stride mid-step without breaking it, and the plank stays silent. The third is closer, and worse, voices ahead, around a corner none of them can see past, close enough that there's no time to find another route, and no good way to retreat without making noise of their own. It's Tamsin who solves this one. Fast, instinctive, a small, precise working that doesn't disable anything so much as bend the sound around them, the corridor's air thickening for a heartbeat in a way none of the others can quite describe afterward. The voices continue past, oblivious, footsteps fading the other direction, and the working releases as quietly as it arrived. Nice, Wick murmurs, genuinely impressed. Cost me something to do, that twice tonight, Tamsin says, equally quiet, and nobody asks what something means yet, filing it away the way they've all started filing away small, unexplained details about each other. They reach the engine housing without further incident, which feels, by now, almost suspicious in itself. The housing door is heavier than the others they've passed, banded in brass gone dark with age and use, and the moment Wick eases it open, the air on the other side hits all 5 of them at once. Warmer than it should be, this deep in an unheated hull, carrying a smell that doesn't belong to oil or brine or any honest machine, something faintly organic, underneath the ozone, like whetstone or old breath. The thruster fills most of the chamber, and up close, it's worse than the spyglass made it look. There are seams in the housing, but they don't run the way seams should. No clean rivet lines, no honest joinery, just long, branching grooves that curve and split the way veins curve and split, brass and something else fused together in a way that doesn't read as built so much as that's settled, the way scar tissue settles over a wound. And it's warm. Not engine warm, not the honest heat of fuel and friction. Warm the way skin is warm, low and even, pulsing very faintly under their palms when Wick, against his better judgment, reaches out to touch the casing. That's not right, he says, quiet, pulling his hand back like he's touched something that might notice. None of this is right, Senna murmurs. Tamsin hasn't said anything at all. She's standing closer to the housing than any of the others, close enough that the faint pulse beneath the brass seems to answer something in her own chest, and the scar along her forearm, quiet since the workshop, since the alcove and the tarp-covered frame, flares hot enough that she has to grip her own wrist to keep from making a sound. Tamsin. Orsa's beside her before anyone else has registered the shift in her breathing. What is it? I don't know. Her voice comes out steadier than she feels, which takes more effort than she'd like to admit. It doesn't feel like looking at a machine. It feels like standing too close to something that's looking back. Nobody has a response for that. It isn't the kind of thing that has a comfortable answer, and all 4 of the others can feel, without being able to name it themselves, the same wrongness Tamsin's just put words to. The unmistakable, skin-prickling sense of being in a room with something that, on some level none of them want to examine too closely, is aware of them. We've seen enough, Bram says, low, decisive, already moving toward the door. Whatever this is, we don't need to understand it tonight. We need to get off this ship and tell Sterling what we found. It's the right call. It's also, unfortunately, a half-second too late. The lantern light catches them from the corridor before any of them hear footsteps. A patrol, rounding the corner at exactly the wrong moment, lantern swinging wide and catching 5 strangers crouched around the engine housing with absolutely no honest explanation for being there. Captain, the patrol shouts, already backing away, already reaching for the alarm bell mounted at the corridor's far end. Boarders! Engine room! Everything that follows happens fast. Steel comes out. Senna's first, on instinct, the others a half-beat behind her. Somewhere above and ahead, deeper in the ship, a second voice picks up the alarm, and a third behind that, the whole vessel waking at once, the way a hive wakes when something's disturbed the wrong cell. Footsteps converge from at least two directions, fast and many, and underneath it all, audible even over the shouting, comes a different sound entirely, slower, heavier, deliberate in a way panic never is. The captain, coming to see for herself. Positions, Bram says, and it isn't a suggestion this time, isn't offered the way his earlier read on the lower deck route was offered. It's an order, flat and immediate, and for the first time tonight, nobody hesitates to take it. Senna moves to cover the corridor. Wick flattens against the housing's far side, already calculating the fastest route to the nearest exit if this goes bad enough to need one. Orsa's owl drops from the rafters above with a sharp, warning cry. Tams embraces, scar still hot, hand already half raised. Lantern light spills fully into the chamber now, catching drawn steel, catching 5 faces gone tight with the particular focus that arrives right before violence. Not fear exactly, not yet, just the held breath of people who know, with total clarity, that whatever happens in the next several seconds is going to happen whether they're ready for it or not. The footsteps stop just short of the doorway. "Well," says a voice from the corridor, unhurried, almost amused, carrying the particular calm of someone who already knows exactly how this is going to go. "Isn't this interesting?